So, I've been sitting here for hours, trying to wrap my head around everything that's happened. Maybe it'll help if I just start from the beginning. I never thought my life would go from average suburban dad to this absolute nightmare. It all started one night, right around dinner time. Laura, my wife of 12 years, drops this bomb on me out of nowhere. We were just sitting there, eating tacos, when she says, "I'm pregnant." I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's a surprise, but still, that's great news, right? I'm about to say something like, "We'll figure this out," but before I can even finish the thought, she drops the next bomb. It's Derek's. Derek. I don't know if I've ever been so confused in my entire life. Derek's the guy I knew through work. He's got this smarmy attitude, always acting like he's better than everyone else, and he's been around our family a lot. He's even come over for dinner a few times, and I trusted him. Never once did I think he'd be the one. My head is spinning. I'm staring at her, waiting for her to explain, and she just sits there. No tears, no anything. Just sitting there like she's telling me she bought a new pair of shoes or something. Then she says, "I'm sorry, but I've been unhappy for a while. And it just happened. Derek and I. It just happened." She says sorry. That's it. That's how she starts this conversation, like it's some minor inconvenience she's had to deal with. I felt like the ground was pulled out from under me. I couldn't even respond at first. My mind was racing, thinking, how long has this been going on? I've always worked hard to support our family, thinking things were fine. But apparently, things haven't been fine for a long time. I don't know why, but the next thing out of my mouth was, "How long have you been seeing him?" She looks down, like she's trying to figure out how to lie in a way that doesn't make her seem too awful. Finally, she says, "A couple of months. We've been talking about a lot of things." The way she said it made me feel like I was the last person to know the truth. And I was. I didn't know what to do. I could hardly breathe, let alone think. So I just stared at her, waiting for more, but she didn't offer anything else. I should have pushed her for answers right then, but I didn't. I just sat there numb. And then she said something that made everything worse. "I'm leaving, Daniel." I didn't even know how to respond to that. I mean, I guess part of me knew this was coming. But to hear her say it out loud, so cold, like it wasn't a big deal, was brutal. So yeah, I guess this is where the nightmare started. After she dropped that bomb, I didn't know what to do with myself. I just sat there staring at my plate, which was now just a mess of shredded lettuce and taco bits, like I could somehow make sense of what was happening by analyzing it. But that wasn't going to work, was it? Laura didn't leave right then, but she might as well have. She didn't seem present. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize like I thought she would. Instead, she acted like she was telling me she decided to get a new haircut or something. So, I sat there in silence for what felt like an eternity, and when I finally opened my mouth, I think I just said something stupid like, "What about the kids?" Her answer? "I'll take them. You'll see them when it's all settled." That hit me harder than the pregnancy and the affair combined. She wasn't even concerned about the kids. All I could think was, what the hell is going on here? After a few minutes of awkward silence, she finally speaks again. "You're going to have to sign the papers soon. Derek's already talking to a lawyer, and we've got everything planned out." That's when I started putting the pieces together. She's been planning this. This wasn't just a random affair. This was calculated. I stood up trying to keep myself from losing it, and said, "What the hell do you mean, we've got everything planned? You're telling me you and Derek have been working together on this?" She just nodded, and I swear to God, she looked almost smug. Like she was in control of the situation, like she had one somehow. "Yeah, I'm not going to let this drag on for years in court. You can either go quietly, or it's going to get ugly." I thought I misheard her at first. Ugly? What the hell does that mean? She gave me this cold smile, like she was delivering a punchline. "It means Derek and I have a plan to make sure you don't fight us. You'll walk away, and everything will be smooth. No fighting, no mess. Just sign the papers, Daniel." I don't even know how I stayed standing. This was worse than I imagined. They were playing me. She continued, "You'll still see Jenny and Mike. Don't worry about them. But you have to understand, this is over. It's been over for a while." I remember feeling this weird combination of rage and confusion. Like I was drowning, but still somehow, my brain was alert enough to catch pieces of her plan. The thing is, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. How could she be this cruel? How could she just lay it all out like it was nothing? Like it was a business transaction? And then, just when I thought she couldn't drop another bomb, she did. Derek's coming by tomorrow to pick up some things. He's been helping me through this. Helping you? I asked, almost laughing through the shock. With what? She looked at me, dead in the eyes. Helping me with you. Derek doesn't want to go through a messy divorce either. So we have to make sure you don't make a scene. The words hit me like a freight train. My head spun. What the hell was she talking about? Make a scene? I asked, struggling to stay calm. She just nodded. Derek can be persuasive. He's not afraid to use whatever it takes. So just don't make it worse, Daniel. The kids will be fine. You'll be fine. Just sign the papers, and we can all move on. The nerve. The audacity. I stood up, so furious I couldn't even see straight. But before I could say anything else, she grabbed her things and headed for the door. I'll be back tomorrow for my stuff. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. She left the house that night, leaving me with a whirlwind of thoughts. Derek, persuasive? What the hell did that mean? Was she implying that if I didn't just roll over, things would get violent? I didn't know, but I knew one thing for sure: this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept seeing Derek's face, that smug smirk he always wore. Was he really going to threaten me? Did I even stand a chance in this? I was about to find out. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go down. I had no idea how far Laura and Derek were willing to take this, but after what she said, I wasn't about to just roll over and let them destroy me. I didn't sleep a wink, just pacing the house, trying to figure out my next move. Around 3 p.m., there was a knock on the door. I froze, but I knew who it was. I took a deep breath, trying to keep myself together, and opened it. There stood Derek, all cocky and acting like he owned the place, just like he always did. "Hey man," he said, like this was some casual visit. "I'm just here to grab a few things." I wanted to scream at him, but instead, I just stepped aside. I didn't know what he wanted, but I had a bad feeling. He walked in like he belonged, and I couldn't help but notice the bulge in his jacket. Was he carrying a gun? I couldn't be sure, but I wasn't taking any chances. My heart was racing. "Got everything planned, huh?" I finally muttered, trying to keep my cool. He shrugged, not even bothering to look guilty. "Look man, this is just how it has to be. Laura and I, well, we've got things worked out. You just need to sign the papers. Keep it civil. You don't want things to get ugly." I stared at him, my fists clenching. "What the hell does that mean, ugly?" I asked, my voice shaking. He leaned closer, and I caught a glimpse of something metal under his jacket. It was enough to send a chill down my spine. "It means," he said slowly, "if you keep pushing this, I'll make sure you regret it. I'm not asking for much. Just cooperate, Daniel. No one needs to get hurt." I could feel the tension in the air. My mind was racing, but I did the only thing I could think of. I reached for my phone, hit record, and started filming. I wasn't about to let him intimidate me into silence. "You're threatening me," I said, my voice steady despite the fear creeping up. "And I have proof now." Derek's eyes narrowed, and for a second, I thought he might lunge at me. But instead, he just grinned like he was enjoying the game. "You think you're tough, huh? You think you can handle me?" he sneered, stepping closer. "This can end however you want it to, Daniel." At that moment, I wasn't sure if he was bluffing or if he was actually going to pull something. But what I did know was that I wasn't about to let him threaten me or my family. My hands were shaking, but I kept the camera rolling, hoping that would be enough to back him off. He finally backed away, smirking again. "We're done here," he said, "but you're not done yet. Think about it." He turned and walked out the door without another word. I stood there, frozen for a moment, staring at the empty space where he'd been. Then, I immediately called the cops. There was no way I was going to let Derek get away with this. I had the recording, and that was all I needed. Within hours, both Derek and Laura were arrested. I couldn't believe it. It was only the beginning, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had control again. I still couldn't believe it. A few hours after Derek left, the cops showed up. I gave them the recording of the threat, and they took it from there. Laura was arrested too, though I didn't know how much she really had to do with Derek's little visit. She hadn't been there, but she'd orchestrated the whole thing, and I wasn't about to let her off the hook. The next few days were a blur: police reports, lawyers, and the looming court date. But something else happened during the investigation that turned everything upside down. I thought I knew about the affair, I thought I knew who Derek was, but it turns out that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was finding out that Derek wasn't even the father of Laura's baby. No, that honor went to Chad, her personal trainer. Yeah, you read that right. Chad. I found out through some texts that the cops dug up. Apparently, Laura and Derek had been in a long-term affair, but it was Chad who'd gotten her pregnant. And it wasn't just a one-off. She'd been juggling affairs with multiple men for months. I was floored. Every assumption I'd made about my life, about her, was wrong. She'd been playing me, using me, and I was just too blind to see it. The texts between Laura and Derek were chilling. They had planned everything down to the smallest detail, from how to manipulate me into agreeing to the divorce terms to how to make sure I didn't fight them. They'd even talked about using Derek's threats to make me submit to their demands. I was the last person to know that Laura had been so deep into this web of lies. I'd been living in a house of cards, and the wind had just blown it all down. The court case was only just beginning, but it was already clear that Laura had orchestrated every last part of this. And now, I had the proof. After everything came to light, things didn't get any easier. If anything, it felt like the storm was only starting. The cops had arrested Laura and Derek, but the real consequences were just beginning to unfold in the court system. As I sat through the first few rounds of legal meetings, I started to piece together just how much Laura had planned this whole mess. She'd been playing a long game. The affair with Derek wasn't just some random mistake, it was part of a bigger scheme to manipulate me, make me feel like I wasn't enough, and then use that to take control of everything. But it wasn't just Derek. I found out that Laura had been seeing multiple guys behind my back. Chad, her personal trainer, was the one who got her pregnant, but there were others too. Other men who had no idea they were all just pawns in her game. I felt sick every time I thought about it. The worst part? None of them even seemed to care about the fallout. Derek didn't care that he'd ruined a family. Chad didn't care that he was responsible for a pregnancy that had turned my whole world upside down. And Laura? She acted like she was entitled to everything, like I was the one who owed her an explanation. But the more I learned, the more I realized something else. This whole thing wasn't just about revenge or money or even Derek and Chad. It was about control. Laura had been trying to control every aspect of my life for years. And now, she was trying to control the narrative of our divorce too. I didn't know where to start. Do I fight back? Do I just walk away and let her take everything? I didn't have the answers, but I knew I wasn't going to make this easy for her. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. Laura sent me a text. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. If you keep fighting me, I'll make sure it's you who looks bad in front of everyone. I know how to play this game better than you do. I didn't know what that meant, but I could feel her trying to manipulate me again. She thought I'd back down like I always did before. She thought she could scare me. But I wasn't scared anymore. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure: I was done being the pawn in her game. Things got really ugly when the custody battle started. Laura, backed by Derek and her whole army of manipulative tactics, came at me full force. At first, I tried to keep it civil. I thought if I stayed calm and reasonable, the court would see things clearly. But no. That's not how this works when you're dealing with someone like Laura. She played the victim card hard, portraying herself as the loving, misunderstood mother who just needed to escape the abusive relationship with me. Yeah, abusive. That's what she called it. I mean, it was like she was reading from a script, one that she had probably been practicing for months. But I wasn't about to let her get away with it. Every time we met in court, she had her lawyer spin some new lie. One day, she claimed I was emotionally neglectful because I worked too much. The next, she said I was hostile because I didn't just sign the divorce papers without a fight. But it was the threats she made in front of my lawyer that really hit me hard. She told him, in front of me, that if I kept pushing for joint custody, she would make sure my reputation was ruined. She made it sound like she could easily twist things to paint me as some sort of monster. She even went as far as saying that Derek had information that could make things really messy for me. I don't know what kind of hold she thought she had over me, but it was clear she was used to getting what she wanted. And Derek, as always, stood by her side, just waiting for me to cave. That's when I realized I couldn't keep fighting this alone. I hired a private investigator. I wanted the truth. All of it. I needed something concrete that I could use in court, something that would show how deep their manipulations ran. And that's when I found out something I wasn't expecting. Laura had been sending threatening messages to other people too, people who might testify against her, people who might expose her lies. It was like a house of cards, and she'd been holding the strings the whole time. But here's the kicker. The investigator also found a message from Derek to Laura, talking about how they could get rid of the baby if it became an issue in the divorce. They didn't even care. They saw this whole thing as a game, and I was just the pawn. It was like everything I thought I knew about my life was shattered. But now, I had the upper hand. I had the proof. They didn't know it yet, but their whole plan was falling apart. It wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be quick, but this time, I wasn't going to back down. I was going to fight for my kids, for my peace of mind, and for the chance to rebuild. I couldn't undo the past, but I could damn sure make sure Laura and Derek paid for what they did. The day of the hearing arrived, and I was nervous as hell, even though I had the upper hand. I had the texts, the recordings, the proof that Derek and Laura had been working together to manipulate me from the start. But sitting in that courtroom, facing my wife and her smug lawyer, I felt like I was about to relive all the worst moments of my life. Laura looked different, like she was playing a role. She had her hair done all nice, wearing her poor betrayed woman look. It was the same act she'd been putting on for weeks, but now I could see through it. Derek was with her, of course, standing in the back, arms crossed like he owned the place. But what they didn't know was that I was ready. I had my own lawyer, someone who understood exactly how manipulative Laura had been. We were about to put it all out in the open. The hearing started, and the judge called us up. Laura's lawyer wasted no time. "Your Honor, we're here because Daniel refuses to come to terms with the reality of his marriage falling apart. My client, Laura, has made it clear that she wants to move forward with a clean break, for herself and for the children." Laura gave a little nod, like she was playing the grieving ex-wife. My stomach turned. But when it was my turn, I didn't hesitate. I laid out the truth, how Laura and Derek had been scheming to control every part of the divorce, how she'd been using the kids as leverage, how they'd both threatened me. And I presented the evidence. The judge's eyes narrowed as the recordings were played, showing Derek threatening me in my own home. Then came the texts between Laura and Derek, detailing their plan to manipulate the entire divorce. I didn't hold back. I wanted them to see how deep this went, how calculated everything was. Laura's face turned pale as the recordings played. I swear, I almost saw a flicker of panic in her eyes, like she realized she wasn't as untouchable as she thought. But she still tried to play it cool, giving her best "oh, poor me" act. Her lawyer stood up and tried to discredit everything, calling it hearsay, saying I was just bitter and angry. But the evidence spoke for itself. The judge wasn't buying her story. Then came the real bombshell. My lawyer brought up the messages about the pregnancy, how Laura had been involved with Chad, how Derek wasn't even the father. You could feel the tension in the room. Laura's lawyer stammered, trying to downplay it, but the damage was done. I could see Laura's world starting to crumble. For once, she didn't have control over the narrative. It felt good. Too good, honestly. Like everything that had been eating away at me for months was finally being exposed. The rest of the hearing was a blur. The judge asked questions, and I answered as calmly as I could. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't help but feel a small bitter victory. This wasn't just about winning in court, it was about showing Laura and Derek that their manipulation wouldn't go unchecked. By the end of the day, the judge made it clear that things weren't going to go the way Laura had hoped. We would have joint custody of the kids. And as for the rest of the divorce, it would be contested. But the message was clear, Laura's lies had caught up with her. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything I'd worked for. Not without a fight. The courtroom victory didn't fix everything, but it felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt like I had some power back. But, of course, that didn't mean the battle was over. Laura didn't just fold after that hearing. If anything, she dug in her heels even harder. After the court session, she sent me a text that said, "This isn't over. You'll regret doing this." She still thought she could intimidate me, but I was done being scared. I didn't care about her threats anymore. The worst part was the kids. Jenny and Mike were still processing everything. They were so confused and hurt, and I couldn't blame them. They loved their mom, even after everything, but I could see how much it was weighing on them. Jenny would cry after every visit with Laura, and Mike had started getting into trouble at school. It was like they didn't know how to handle all the broken pieces of their family. I spent hours talking to them, reassuring them that I would always be there for them, no matter what. But I couldn't make the hurt go away. I just had to be the stable one, the one who wouldn't let them fall apart. It was hard though. Harder than anything I'd ever done. Laura kept up the act, playing the victim in front of the kids. She'd tell them things like, "Your dad doesn't understand me. He doesn't want to co-parent." But I could see through it. I wasn't going to let her manipulate them the way she had manipulated me. Still, it hurt every time they came back from one of her visits, looking more confused than before. Meanwhile, things with Derek were spiraling too. He'd been arrested after the threat at my house, and his life had fallen apart. I found out that his own wife had kicked him out, and he was now living with a friend. His whole world crumbled when the truth came out. I didn't feel sorry for him, but it was strange to see him, once the confident, cocky guy, now nothing more than a broken shell. He'd lost everything. And Laura, well, she wasn't much better off. She lost her job not long after the court hearing. I don't know exactly how it happened, but word got around about the affair, the manipulation, the threats. She was let go from her marketing position, and no one would hire her after that. It was like her whole life was unraveling piece by piece. I heard through mutual friends that she was drinking a lot more. I wasn't sure if I should feel sorry for her, but part of me didn't. I'd like to say that watching her fall apart was satisfying, but it wasn't. It was just sad. She had everything: family, a nice house, a life that many people would envy, and she threw it all away for what? A scheme that blew up in her face? A pregnancy that wasn't even Derek's? I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a little bit of justice though. Because as much as Laura's life fell apart, mine was slowly coming back together. It wasn't easy. I still had days where I just couldn't shake the weight of everything she did. But I focused on the kids, on making sure they knew they were loved, on making sure they had a solid home with me. I even started seeing someone. Her name's Rachel. She's a friend of a friend, and it started pretty casually, just grabbing coffee here and there. I wasn't looking for anything serious. But slowly, over time, I started to feel something again. For the first time in a long time, I realized that maybe I didn't have to be stuck in the mess Laura left behind. Maybe I could actually have a life that wasn't all about surviving. And that was a thought I never thought I'd entertain again. So yeah, things were getting better. But I'd be lying if I said the scars from all this didn't run deep. Sometimes, the weight of everything hits me out of nowhere. I think about what could have been if Laura hadn't thrown it all away. If we'd worked on things instead of her just walking away and pulling the rug out from under us. But I'm learning to live with the mess, learning to heal. It's not a perfect story, and it never will be. But I'm doing the best I can. And that's all I can do. Things started to settle into a new routine, though it never felt like things were normal. I kept pushing forward for the kids, trying to keep things as stable as possible. Jenny and Mike were adjusting, slowly. Some days were better than others. Jenny, who had always been close to Laura, struggled the most. I saw the pain in her eyes when she asked why things couldn't just go back to how they were. But I kept reassuring them, reminding them they were safe, they were loved, and that I was never going to walk away. I kept our house as consistent as possible. Same meals, same routines, same bedtime stories. It wasn't perfect, but I think it helped. Meanwhile, Laura's world continued to crumble. I wasn't keeping track of every detail, but I heard from friends that she was barely holding it together. She moved into a small apartment after losing her job. I didn't know if she had hit rock bottom yet, but she was getting close. It didn't make me feel good, but I wasn't going to offer help. Not after everything she did. Derek was out of the picture now, at least in the sense that I didn't have to deal with him anymore. He disappeared into his own spiral, losing his wife and his own stability. He'd sent a few messages, trying to apologize, but I ignored them. There was nothing to say. He had chosen his side, and I was done with him. Rachel and I kept seeing each other. It started out slow, just dinners and late-night phone calls. I didn't expect much. But something about her kindness, her understanding, started to make me realize that maybe I could have something real again. Something that wasn't weighed down by lies and betrayal. I wasn't ready to rush into anything, but it felt good to smile again, to talk to someone who didn't have a hidden agenda. I let myself enjoy the little moments with her, the easy laughs, the simple companionship. I wasn't trying to replace Laura, and I didn't think I ever would. But I was learning how to live again. And that felt like progress. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I wasn't perfect. Hell, I still had bad days where the pain hit me like a punch to the gut, but I was getting through it. And that was enough. I knew the scars from Laura's betrayal would never fully heal. The trust I'd had in her, the dreams we'd built together, they were all shattered. But with time, I was starting to realize that maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. And that, at least, gave me hope. It's been a few months since everything went down in court. The dust is settling, but every now and then, I still get hit with the weight of it all. The kids are doing better, though it's clear they're still struggling with everything they've lost. Jenny's been spending more time with me, and Mike started getting back into his old hobbies, like the guitar he barely touched after the split. I'm proud of them. They're stronger than I ever gave them credit for. But me? Well, I'm still figuring it out. Some days feel like I'm climbing up a mountain, and other days, I'm just coasting downhill. There's still a lot of anger buried in me. I won't lie about that. I get so mad thinking about how Laura manipulated me, about how she used our family as pawns. But I've learned to sit with that anger, not let it control me. The best thing I can do right now is keep my focus on my kids and myself. Rachel and I are still seeing each other, though we've slowed things down a little. I like her. She's easy to talk to, and she respects my space. We're not rushing into anything, and that feels right. I'm not ready for another commitment. Not yet. But we've started making plans to do more together. Little things like hiking or grabbing a drink after work. It's the kind of simple low-pressure stuff I missed out on for so long. It feels good to live again, even if it's just a little at a time. As for Laura, she hasn't tried to reach out much lately. I think the reality of what's happened is finally setting in for her. She lost everything, her family, her job, her reputation, and while I don't feel sorry for her, part of me wonders if she's starting to realize what she threw away. I still don't know what she wants from me, but I'm not waiting for her to come crawling back. I know what I deserve now. And I'm done letting her define my life. There are still days when the anger hits hard, when I think about how she tore our family apart for a man who wasn't even the father of her child, but I've learned that holding on to that anger only hurts me in the long run. So, I let it go. Little by little, I'm letting it go. The hardest part of all this, though, is accepting that things are different now. The family I thought I had is gone. Laura and I aren't going to fix anything, and the kids will never have the same life they did before. And while that hurts, I've started to see that there's still room for a new life. A different life. One where I'm in control, one where I'm not constantly drowning in betrayal. I'm not saying it's easy. Hell, it's anything but easy. But I'm learning how to live again. For myself. For my kids. For the future. And that's something I never thought I'd say. I guess the real takeaway from all this is that no matter how deep the betrayal cuts, no matter how dark things get, you can always come out the other side. It won't be the same, and it might not be what you expected, but you'll survive. You have to. I'm surviving. And that's all that matters right now. It's been months since that court date, and while things aren't perfect, they're a lot more manageable now. Jenny and Mike are adjusting, which is probably the best thing I could ask for. Jenny's talking to me more, asking questions about life, about what comes next. Mike, he's starting to smile again, to joke around like he used to. It's not all sunshine, but it's progress. As for me, I've gotten used to the new normal. I've been focusing on what's in front of me, the kids, work, and just trying to make it through each day without going back to that dark place I was in when Laura first left. It's still hard sometimes. I catch myself thinking about the life we could have had, the one I thought was solid and real. And then I get angry again, thinking about how Laura shattered everything for some messed up idea of happiness. But I'm learning not to let that anger define me. It's there, sure, but I'm not letting it take control anymore. Rachel and I have settled into a comfortable rhythm. I don't think either of us is rushing for anything more serious, and that's fine by me. I've had a lot of time to reflect on what I want, and I'm still not sure I'm ready for another relationship. But with Rachel, I don't feel pressure. It's easy, fun even. Sometimes we talk about silly stuff, other times about deeper things, like where we want to be in 5 years. For now, it feels right. As for Laura, I don't hear much from her anymore. I think she's finally starting to see the mess she made, though I doubt she's taking full responsibility for any of it. Word on the street is she's still struggling, drinking more, staying away from family and friends. I don't know if she'll ever realize how much she's lost. Honestly, I don't care. I don't need her validation anymore. The most important thing for me now is that the kids see that their dad is still standing. That no matter what happened, I'm here for them. And while they'll always carry some of the hurt from everything that went down, I'll make sure they know it wasn't their fault. So yeah, the scars from all this will never fade completely, but I'm learning how to live with them. The pain's there, but it doesn't control me anymore. Life's different, but it's mine to shape now. And for the first time in a long time, that feels like enough. Life's been moving forward, one step at a time, even if it's slow. The kids are doing better, Mike's grades are improving, and Jenny's starting to open up more, especially now that I'm taking her to do some of the things she used to enjoy. I think she feels like she's got some stability back, and that's all I want for them. Rachel and I are still seeing each other, but at this point, I think we both know that we're in no rush. It's nice to have someone to talk to share a meal with, without any of the weight of the past hanging over us. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm learning not to think too far ahead. Just focus on today. As for Laura, I haven't heard from her in a while. I'm not sure if she's giving me space or if she's just too caught up in her own mess. I don't care either way. Honestly, it's a relief not to be caught in her drama. I still think about the betrayal sometimes, what she did to our family, how she manipulated me for so long, but I've stopped letting it consume me. I'm not going to lie and say the healing process is easy. Some nights, I still wake up in a cold sweat, replaying the worst parts of it all. And I still get angry, sometimes more than I should. But I'm learning how to channel that anger, to let it go before it takes over. There's no point in staying stuck in the past. Lately, I've been thinking about what I want, not just what's best for the kids. I've started running more, spending time on things that make me feel good, whether it's hitting the gym or just going for a walk to clear my head. I'd forgotten what it felt like to do something for me. The truth is, I'm slowly rebuilding. Not just my life, but my sense of who I am. For so long, I was defined by the roles I played: husband, father, provider. But now, I'm starting to figure out who I am outside of all of that. And it feels freeing. I still don't know what's next. I'm not rushing into anything. But for the first time, I'm excited about the possibility of the future. It's mine to shape, mine to make whatever I want out of it. And that, I think, is the ultimate victory. It's been almost a year since everything went down, and the shift in my life is undeniable. At first, it felt like I was just going through the motions, getting up every day, dealing with the kids, trying to keep it together. But now, as I look back, I can see just how far I've come. Not just in terms of healing from the betrayal, but in rebuilding my life in a way that feels like mine again. Jenny and Mike are doing so much better. They've settled into a routine, and there's less of that heavy silence hanging over our house. Jenny still has her moments, but she's talking to me more, and we're starting to rebuild that bond. I've been trying to take her out one-on-one more, do little things like going for a walk or hitting up a local cafe for a snack. She needs that. Mike, though, is different. He's been more open about his feelings lately, even cracking jokes and asking to hang out after school. I think he's starting to realize that it's okay to enjoy life again, that he's not betraying me or his mom by finding happiness. It's a relief to see them both bounce back. But I'm not just focused on them. I've spent a lot of time thinking about what I want for once. It sounds selfish, I know, but it feels necessary. I've spent so much time being the good guy, the dad who never let things fall apart, the husband who just kept trying to make it work no matter what. And I forgot about me. I forgot about what made me happy, what I needed. So, I started making changes. Little things at first: waking up earlier to get a run in, spending more time on hobbies I had abandoned years ago. I dusted off my guitar. I started reading more, just for the fun of it. I realized that I had spent so many years of my life caught up in the whirlwind of other people's needs, trying to keep everyone else happy, that I'd forgotten who I was outside of that. I'd lost myself in the roles I was playing: husband, father, provider, and I'd forgotten that I was Daniel. Just Daniel. It's not always easy. There are days when I still feel the weight of everything, days when the anger still creeps up. I'll be honest, there's a part of me that still wants to scream at Laura for what she did, for how easily she ripped everything apart. But I've learned to channel that anger. I've learned to let it go. It's not healthy to carry that around forever, and I don't want it to define me anymore. Rachel and I have been spending more time together. It's still low pressure, just casual hangouts, nothing too serious. But it feels nice to have someone who doesn't have any baggage or hidden agendas. With her, I can just be myself, no past to haunt me, no expectations hanging over us. I don't know what the future holds with her, but for now, I'm just grateful for the companionship. For the first time in a long time, I'm not rushing toward a goal, not pushing for something that doesn't feel right. I'm just taking things day by day, letting things unfold. Laura, meanwhile, is still a mess. I don't hear much about her anymore, but I know she's still struggling. From what I gather, she's bounced between jobs, and her drinking has only gotten worse. I don't take pleasure in her downfall, but I can't help but feel like it's the consequence of her own actions. She destroyed everything she had, and now she's left trying to rebuild a life from the wreckage. I don't know if she'll ever truly get it. If she'll ever understand the magnitude of the damage she did. But that's not my problem anymore. The thing I've realized is that I can't keep waiting for other people's validation or closure. I spent too much of my life trying to make things work with someone who wasn't even interested in trying anymore. I'm not saying I'll never have closure, but it's no longer my job to fix things that can't be fixed. I can't change the past. All I can do is focus on moving forward. And for the first time, I feel like I'm actually doing that. Looking back, I think the hardest thing I had to accept was that my life would never look the way I thought it would. There was no going back to the way things were before Laura's betrayal. The family I thought I had, the future I imagined, it's all gone. And it took me a long time to accept that. It took a lot of soul-searching to come to terms with the fact that life was going to be different, and that was okay. I've stopped holding on to the past. I've stopped wondering what might have been. I've started focusing on what is. And that shift in mindset has been life-changing. I'm not the same person I was before. I've been through something that has fundamentally changed me, and I'm not sure who I'll be in another year, another 2 years. But I know one thing for sure, I'm no longer defined by my marriage to Laura or the betrayal she threw at me. I'm rebuilding, piece by piece, and though I'm still a little broken, I'm stronger for it. I'm learning to take back control of my life, to shape it in a way that feels right for me. The journey's not over. Hell, I don't even know what the end of it looks like. But I know I'm on the right path. And that's enough for now. It's been a while now, and I've finally reached a place where I can honestly say I'm okay. Not perfect, not fully healed, but okay. There's something freeing about getting to that point. I've spent so much time worrying about the past, about Laura, about the betrayal, about how everything fell apart, that I forgot what it felt like to just live in the present. Jenny and Mike are still the most important part of my life. They're both doing well. Jenny's a little more open with me now, sharing her thoughts and worries instead of bottling them up. And Mike? He's thriving. He's back to his old self, playing guitar, cracking jokes, just being the kid he used to be before all of this took over. They're resilient. I didn't realize how strong they were until I saw them start to heal. It makes everything worth it. Rachel and I are still keeping things light. I won't lie, there's a part of me that's still hesitant to dive into anything serious. I've been burned, and I don't want to rush into another relationship until I'm sure I'm ready. But we're spending more time together, and it's easy. We've got a simple, fun dynamic, and that's more than enough for now. I'm enjoying just being with someone again, without all the pressure. And as for Laura, well, I've stopped tracking her life. I don't care what she's doing anymore. I know she's still struggling, her job's not stable, and from what I hear, she's still making poor choices. Part of me feels sorry for her, but it's a small part. She made her decisions. She burned every bridge, including the one with me. I'm done trying to figure her out or feel anything about her. The anger's faded, and I'm okay with that. What I've realized is that it's okay to not have all the answers. I don't have to know what my future looks like or where my life will go. The important thing is that I'm moving forward. Slowly but surely, I'm getting there. I still have bad days, days when I get a wave of anger or sadness that I can't shake. But they don't control me anymore. I don't let them define me. I've learned that the best way to cope is to just keep moving, to keep doing the next thing, no matter how small. And every day, that's getting easier. I don't know what comes next, but I do know this, I'm ready for it. I've survived the worst, and I'm stronger for it. I don't need a perfect ending. I just need to keep going, and that's enough. It's crazy how life can turn around when you least expect it. A year ago, I was on my knees, broken, betrayed, questioning everything. But today, I feel like I'm standing tall again, even if the ground's a little uneven. I've been through hell and come out the other side. Not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, more myself than I've ever been. The kids are in a good place now. Jenny's taken up painting, a way to express all the feelings she can't always put into words. It's been a good outlet for her, something positive to channel the confusion of the past year. Mike's got his friends back, playing in a band on weekends, cracking jokes like nothing ever happened. And I'm proud of them for how far they've come. They've been through so much, and they're showing resilience I never expected. I've been diving deeper into the things that make me feel alive again, things that have nothing to do with the past or anyone else. I've got a routine now. I run in the mornings, I've picked up a couple of books I've been meaning to read, and I even started cooking again. I remember when Laura and I first got married, I used to try making these big, complicated dinners, hoping it would be something fun for us to do together. It didn't work out that way, but I'm rediscovering a love for it on my own. Little by little, I'm getting back to who I was before all the chaos. Rachel and I, we're still keeping things low-key, but it feels good to be around someone who's patient, someone who lets me set the pace. I'm not in a rush, but I like what we've got. She makes me laugh. She's easy to be with, and for once, I don't feel like I have to impress anyone. For the first time in a long time, I feel accepted for just being. We're taking things slow, but that's exactly what I need. I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness lately. Not for Laura, because I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive her for what she did, but for myself. I've had to forgive myself for staying in that toxic relationship for so long, for not seeing the warning signs, for ignoring my gut. I'm realizing that I don't need to carry that guilt anymore. I did the best I could with what I had, and sometimes, that's all we can do. It feels like I'm finally learning to live for me, not for a marriage, not for anyone's approval, just for me. I'm carving out space in my life where I can breathe, where I don't feel weighed down by the past. I don't have all the answers, but I'm okay with that. The truth is, I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Rachel and I will be something more. Maybe not. Maybe I'll meet someone else, or maybe I'll stay single for a while. What matters is that I'm okay either way. I've finally reached a place where I'm not waiting for a perfect resolution, a magical moment of closure. I'm just living. And that's enough. Whatever comes next, I'm ready. I'm standing on my own 2 feet, and that feels like a victory in itself.